The man returned home only to find his house turned into a refuge for vagrants. Not only did he not drive them away, but he also enjoyed their presence. Seeing the homeless people in pity, he threw his money into the air. However, his erratic behavior stemmed from being forced to kill an innocent man. Using this chaos to distract himself, worried that the vagrants would leave, he gave them money to buy food before going to work. Seeing Jesse's actions, the tattooed guy began to harbor malicious intentions. When Jesse got home from work, he brought some artwork to share with them and then took a girl upstairs to play video games. As soon as he got upstairs, Jesse realized his money was stolen, but he didn't care and continued to play games with the girl. Jesse seemed utterly lost in despair. The next morning, still half asleep, Jesse was yanked out of bed by Mike. Jesse came downstairs to find everyone had been thrown out by Mike, with the thief beaten and his money recovered. Since Jesse killed Gail, they had been monitoring him closely. Getting his money back didn't cheer Jesse up. Instead, he seemed more sober than ever. Mike, frustrated, reported the situation to his boss, Gus.
It's Pinkman. He's become increasingly incautious. He's a risk, a liability. I know he and Walter come as a team and that Walter won't like it. But something's got to be done.
The next day, Walter worked half a day alone without seeing Jesse. He called Jesse, but there was no answer. So Walter went to Jesse's house but got no response when knocking. Fortunately, a window was unlocked. Walter climbed in but found the house empty, with Jesse's phone left behind. Walter concluded that Gus had either taken Jesse or had him killed. But without access to Gus, he could only vent his anger at the cameras.
Where is he?
Meanwhile, Jesse was being taken on an unknown route by Mike. Walter, unable to concentrate on work, decided to confront Gus and planned to take him down, even preparing his last words.
Hi, you've reached the White family. Please leave a message.
Hey, it's me. I just wanted to say that I was thinking about you and the kids, and I love you.
He sped to Gus's restaurant. Seeing Gus's car, Walter took the gun he bought from the black market and headed straight for the restaurant, but the staff said the boss wasn't there. Walter didn't believe it, claiming he wouldn't leave until he saw Gus. Seeing cameras everywhere, Walter felt constantly monitored. Soon, Mike called, saying Jesse was with him and told Walter to return to the lab. Walter didn't believe him and demanded to speak with Jesse, but Jesse had no idea what Mike was taking him to do. Before Walter could finish, Mike hung up. Frustrated, Walter stormed into Gus's office. To his surprise, Gus wasn't there. Meanwhile, Jesse was taken to a desolate area. At this moment, Jesse finally began to feel scared because it was clear that Mike had brought him to an isolated place to eliminate him. Jesse clutched his keys, ready to defend himself, but Mike ignored him, walking off with a shovel. Was Mike going to bury him alive? Mike found a hole covered with boards and retrieved a bag full of cash. Mike had brought Jesse along to help retrieve hidden money from transactions, with 6 more locations to visit that day. The plot is directly reversed here. Just when everyone thought Jesse was about to be killed, he miraculously escaped death again. However, what Gus truly has planned will only be revealed in the end. Jesse realized he was just there to stand guard for Mike and requested a gun for protection, which Mike denied. Bored, Jesse chattered nonstop in the car. Mike, fed up, pulled over and yelled at him.
You are not the guy. You're not capable of being the guy. I had a guy, but now I don't. You are not the guy.
Then what the hell am I doing here?
I don't know. I just do what I'm told. And now you're gonna do what you're told, which is to sit here, shut up, and stay in the car till we finish our pickups. You got it?
Meanwhile, Walter was left to work alone, needing a break. He remembered the car wash acquisition and rushed home to sign the contract with their lawyer. Walter and Skyler were now completely in the same boat. To celebrate this significant moment, they decided to raise a toast. At that moment, Skyler noticed a voicemail notification and quickly listened.
It's me. I just wanted to say that I was thinking about you and the kids, and I love you.
It was Walter's emotional farewell message before his confrontation with Gus. Hearing his heartfelt words, they seemed to reconnect with their old feelings. Skyler then suggested Walter move back in, making it easier to explain their strong relationship and joint ownership of the car wash. Walter then rushes back to work, but he doesn't know how to drive a forklift and gets angry at the camera again.
Hey! This is a two-man job. I can't do it alone. I'm done. That's it. Finished. Nothing else happens until I get my partner back.
After a break, Walter heard someone enter, thinking it was Jesse, but it was Gus's henchman, Tyrus. Walter insisted Jesse return to help him, but at this point, he had no say in the matter, and Jesse and Mike made it to the last stop. While Jesse was keeping watch out of boredom, he suddenly saw a guy with a gun approaching. He doesn't tear, he just backs up his car and crashes into the guy, then lures him out of the way, leaving Mike alone and confused in the wind. Just as Mike was about to call for help, Jesse returned in time and explained the situation to Mike. Mike appreciated his actions and even allowed him to smoke in the car. The next day, when Walter arrived at work, he saw Jesse was back and anxiously asked him what he had been doing the day before. Jesse describes the whole thing and is proud of his accomplishment. Jesse grew impatient with Walter's questioning and claimed he now had 2 jobs. He told Walter to change clothes and get to work. However, Jesse didn't realize he was gradually falling into Gus's trap. Unlike Walter, Gus understood human weaknesses better. He knows that Jesse is a man who craves approval. So Gus deliberately set up this play to get Jesse to get his approval. With a sense of accomplishment, Jesse wouldn't be as obedient to Walter. As expected, this would distance them, which was exactly what Gus wanted. In the evening, the 2 families gathered together. Walter, still frustrated, couldn't figure out Gus's game. Depressed, Walter began to drown his sorrows in alcohol. As they talked, Hank brought up Gail's case. Hank praised Gail as a genius in chemistry but lamented that his talent was misused, leading to his death. Hearing this, the drunken Walter became arrogant.
Not to tell you your business, but I'm not sure I agree.
What do you mean?
Well, you showed me that notebook, and from what I saw, and this is just my humble opinion, from what I saw on those papers, genius? I mean, there was no reasoning, no deductions in those pages. So to my eye, all this brilliance looks like nothing more than just simple rote copying. Probably of someone else's work. Believe me, I have been around enough students to know. This genius of yours, maybe he's still out there.
This was practically digging his own grave. Walter's words made Skyler break out in a cold sweat. It became clear that, like Jesse, Walter also desperately needed recognition, which was their inherent weakness. This rekindled Hank's interest in Gail's case, despite his earlier intention to let it go. According to the records, Gail was a vegetarian, but what puzzled Hank was when vegetarians started liking fried chicken. This is the kind of robbery you've never seen before. The robbers didn't fire a single bullet yet easily took down 2 armed guards. Just moments ago, the 2 guards heard the truck being intercepted, followed by the sound of the driver being shot in the head. They immediately went on alert, but they had no idea about the robbers' ruthless methods. The robbers inserted one end of a hose into the truck's air intake and connected the other end to the exhaust pipe. Exhaust fumes quickly filled the truck's cabin. Then, they locked the doors and placed a heavy brick on the gas pedal. The man also took the driver's lunchbox. The 2 guards inside panicked, desperately banging on the doors to no avail. The robbers ate and watched them suffocate. A few minutes later, they found the buckets of fried chicken batter with the new labels and took them. Inside those buckets were Gus's contraband, but Gus wasn't going to stand by while this happened, so he arranged for Mike to take Jesse to investigate. Following Mike's leads, they found out that the junkies in a particular house had the stolen goods but hadn't bought them directly from Gus's operation. Figuring out where the junkies got the goods would lead them to the robbers. Mike discovered that these people liked to carry weapons and didn't play by the rules. The safest approach was to observe them discreetly. However, Jesse grew impatient and decided to pose as a buyer to gather information, but they didn't deal with strangers, so Jesse was turned away. Back in the car, Jesse came up with another idea. Unlike Mike, he understood the mind of a junkie. Jesse took a shovel from the trunk and started digging a hole near their house, quickly piquing the junkie's curiosity. Because junkies often repeat the same actions, Jesse successfully passed the digging task to one of them. This allowed Jesse to sneak into their house. Even though he claimed to be friends with the guy digging outside, the junkies inside still pointed a gun at him. Mike, hearing the commotion, came to Jesse's aid. Taking advantage of the man's distraction, Jesse knocked him out. Mike saw that the note written on the lid of the stolen fried chicken batter bucket was left by the Mexican cartel. They wanted to confront Gus. In the third season, Gus had orchestrated the elimination of their key personnel and secured a talent like Walter, creating a perfect self-sustaining operation. Gus is a huge threat to the Mexican drug cartel. The robbery at the beginning of the video was a warning to Gus. Earlier, at the gathering, a slightly inebriated Walter dug his own grave in front of Hank. His words kept Skyler up all night. Skyler suspected that the deceased Gail was Walter's colleague. Combining this with Walter's recent injuries and his heartfelt voicemail, Skyler realized it wasn't a declaration of love but more like a final farewell. Skyler concluded that Walter was in danger and insisted he go to the police. Compared to making money, she was more concerned about Walter's safety. Skyler's nagging made Walter impatient. To prove his capability, Walter said something he would regret.
Who are you talking to right now? Who is it you think you see? Do you know how much I make a year? I mean, even if I told you, you wouldn't believe it. Do you know what would happen if I suddenly decided to stop going into work? I am not in danger, Skyler. I am the danger. A guy opens his door and gets shot, and you think that of me? No. I am the one who knocks.
Skyler was frightened by this new side of Walter, completely unlike the man she once knew. After the outburst, Walter doesn't realize the consequences of his words, and when he gets out of the shower he realizes that his wife has left the house with their daughter. That evening, Walter went to the car wash for the handover. Bogdan never imagined that his car wash would one day be bought by a former employee. Bogdan kept taunting Walter to vent his own frustration. Unaware of what Walter had been through recently, Walter didn't argue with Bogdan's sarcasm. When Bogdan tried to take the first dollar he earned, Walter firmly refused.
As is.
The next morning, Skyler hadn't returned, leaving Walter and Walter Jr. to have a lonely breakfast together. Walter Jr. noticed the tension between his parents and speculated that his mother was angry at Walter for gambling. Walter Jr. felt sorry for his father and was upset with his mother's behavior. Walter didn't know how to explain and told Walter Jr. not to jump to conclusions, insisting it was all his fault, not his mother's. On the way to school, since Walter Jr. had recently gotten his driver's license and always wanted his own car, Walter decided to fulfill his wish. Walter bought his son his favorite Dodge Challenger, and Walter Jr. idolized him even more. If Walter Jr. knew where the money came from, would he still accept the car? Walter arrived at work and saw Jesse at the door. He pulled Jesse aside to a place without cameras to ask what he had been doing with Mike. Jesse said he was just acting as a bodyguard. Walter found this very puzzling. Gus had many subordinates, so why choose Jesse, who didn't seem fit for the role? Walter guessed it was all part of Gus's trap, but Jesse, having gained Gus's approval, wouldn't listen to Walter.
They can't outright kill me, but they don't want me getting high. I see this thing probably started as Gus getting Mike to babysit me. But you know what? I saved Mike from getting robbed. Even killed, maybe. So maybe I'm not such a loser after all.
Poor Walter had spent so long with Jesse and never gained his trust, while Gus won him over with a small trick. As soon as they got to the lab, Jesse was assigned to an outside task.
Gotta go. What, am I supposed to clean all this on my own?
Helpless, Walter had to get 3 female workers from the laundromat to clean the lab. Seeing it was a restricted area, they initially refused, but money talked. Walter smugly drank his coffee and looked at the camera. However, after the women finished cleaning, they were fired. Walter pleaded for them, but Tyrus ignored him. That night, Mike reported to Gus about the day's work. He discovered that the car robbery was carried out by the Mexican cartel. Mike wanted to ask Gus for a few enforcers so he could drive the cartel members back to their home turf. Gus didn't want to start a war and instead asked Mike to arrange a meeting with them. He also inquired about Jesse's performance.
How did he do today? I hear you can handle yourself.
I guess. Why me?
I like to think I see things in people.
Meanwhile, frightened by Walter, Skyler drove to the Four Corners Monument. She wanted to use a coin toss to decide whether to stay or leave. However, both times the coin flips told her to leave the place. Skyler looks at her newborn daughter and decides to stay. Back home, Skyler saw the Dodge at the door and knew Walter had messed up again. While their son was out for a drive, Walter apologized for his harsh words and assured her that he and the family were safe. He said everything he did was for the family. Skyler snapped back immediately. Was buying that Dodge for the family? It will only expose our lies. If you really care about this family, return the car tomorrow.
I just worry that he'll blame you for this.
Oh, he will. Once again, he'll blame his mother for taking away what his loving father has given him, so thanks for that. But you know what, Walt? Someone has to protect this family from the man who protects this family.
Which one of them do you think did the right thing?